Okay, so this is my presentation on formalism and new criticism theory. Formalism, there were several people that they listed for that. The main people that they had listed on both of the resources that I used were Roman Jakobson and Victor Shklovsky. They were the most well-known formalists and worked more, I think, with all of the foundational things that went down with formalism. Formalism was intended to focus more on form than actual content of a piece of literature. Scholars proposed a scientific method to study poetic language. Their thought behind this process was that it is different than ordinary language. In 1916, Shklovsky introduced defamiliarization. This concept basically stated literature has the ability to make us see the world from new perspectives. Formalists placed great emphasis on the literariness of a text, which basically is what distinguishes it from other types of writing. It's what makes it different. New criticism. New critics who that they listed in both of our references were Clint Brooks, John Crow Ransom, Robert Penn Warren, and W.K. Winstead. It stressed close reading of the text itself, which is something that I think a lot of us are familiar with. It's aimed at bringing a greater intellectual rigor to the literary studies, confines itself to basically the scrutiny of the text and the formal structure. So, whereas formalism was more, based on the form and things like that, this is scrutiny of the text and the structures. Texts are considered to be closed, which means everything you need to know and understand about it is present within the text itself. You do not have to go outside and get additional resources or find information anywhere else. The main focus on the text itself is on the text itself, and they do not include the author's intentions, moralistic biases, readers' responses, or historical and cultural context. So basically the only thing that is that they focus on is the actual text. They do not care really about anything else at all in regards to the text. They lean strongly to close reading when interacting with the text, and this is something that I saw in both of the resources that I found on new criticism and formalism. Both of them stated that close reading was basically the main thing that they were really focusing on. Similarities for these. Both took place in the first half of the 20th century. Both view the text as the most important part of a piece of literature. Neither of these lean heavily on the author's intention or cultural and historical context, and both focus mainly on poetry. While they can be used with different types of literature, mainly they just focus on poetry. The main difference, and this was really the only thing that in either one of my resources that I could find on any differences of it, was this quote: Russian formalism was a school of literary criticism in Russia from the 1910s to the 1930s, but new criticism was actually a formalist movement in literary theory that dominated American literary criticism in the first half of the 20th century. So while formalism was basically a school, the new criticism was a movement. How is this applicable to me as a teacher? As an avid reader of many forms of literature, as well as being an English and reading teacher in multiple grade levels for 3 years, I could see and agree with each of these theories in different ways. When teaching reading, it's important to know why we teach certain things the way we do. And a lot of those reasons as to why or how we do that is based on theories. And those theories have an impact in the way that we actually teach in our classroom, what we teach, and how we teach those things when dealing with literature. The formalism theory makes a lot of sense to me because I agree that literature can help us to see so many different perspectives of the world. This is one of the main reasons that I love to read, and I love for my students to read, is because and to get it with different types of literature, because they're actually getting different perspectives from different people who may have, more experience with the things that they're reading about or things like that. In regards to the new criticism, I agreed with it in that everything we need to understand is within a text. I think so often we feel like we have a text and we read it, but then we need to go somewhere else and just see, if there's other information that we can apply to it. But I think the best thing to do, is to take what is literally inside the text and use it, for our understanding. This allows our students to have to find all the information they should know or learn from that text. All the valuable information about that literary subject is within the confines of that piece. I think both of these theories have allowed me to see a different take on not only poetry, but all literary works. And I think that definitely can only be beneficial as a teacher to understanding new theories and how we can apply them in our classroom. And these are my resources. The first one is the link that Dr. Z gave us. And the second one is from PEDIAA, which is a scholarly journal on Google Scholar. And the article was, "What is the difference between Russian formalism and new criticism?" And it's actually a really good article, gave a lot of really good information that was kind of, easier for us to understand. So that is my presentation.